This week, Russia lost more soldiers than it recruited. Again, not last year, not last month, this week. A classified Russian Air Force document, leaked just days ago, shows that in a single 3-week window, Russian warplanes suffered 24 mechanical failures. No Ukrainian missiles, no combat. The planes just broke. On April 13th, 2026, it was confirmed that Russia's tank units are now going into battle without tanks because commanders are too terrified. And on April 10th, Putin sentenced his own former deputy defense minister to 19 years in prison. 3 headlines, 1 week, all from the same collapsing army. This is not a slow decline. This is a live collapse, happening right now in real time. And today we are going to break down exactly how bad it has gotten. For over 3 years, Vladimir Putin had one answer to every casualty report: find more men. It was brutal, it was simple, and for a while, it worked. Russia has the world's largest landmass, a population of 144 million, and a military culture built on the idea that soldiers are replaceable. In World War II, the Soviet Union lost over 27 million people and still won. Putin clearly believes history can repeat itself. But history has a way of surprising even dictators. Because as of late 2025, for the first time since this war began, Russia started losing more soldiers than it could recruit. Let that number settle in. Every single month, thousands more Russians are dying than are signing up to fight. And this gap is growing. According to data tracked by the Institute for the Study of War, Russia's force generation apparatus is no longer able to keep pace. In the first 3 months of 2026 alone, Russia recruited approximately 80,000 soldiers. Russia lost over 85,000 to death and serious injury. That's a deficit of 5,000 in just 90 days. At current rates, Russia will fall short of its annual recruitment target of 409,000 contract soldiers by a massive margin. And why? Because the lies have run out. At the start of the war, the propaganda machine convinced young men they were going on a quick, glorious mission to liberate Ukraine. The operation would be over in weeks. They'd come home as heroes. 3 years later, every Russian family knows someone who didn't come home. The average life expectancy of a new Russian recruit at the front was measured at 2 to 4 weeks in late 2024. By 2025, it got shorter. So recruiters got desperate. They went into prisons and offered convicts a deal. Fight for 6 months, your record disappears. They recruited men with chronic conditions, pressured ethnic minorities and immigrants, and trafficked men from Africa with false promises. And still, it wasn't enough. Now they've turned to a target they haven't tried before: university students. When a war goes wrong, someone has to pay. In Russia, that someone is never Vladimir Putin. What has happened inside Russia's Ministry of Defense over the last 2 years is not a corruption crackdown. It is a purge, and it follows a pattern that history has seen before, from Stalin's officer purges to the final moves of a dictator who has run out of excuses. It started in May 2024 when Putin removed Sergei Shoigu, his defense minister for over a decade, from his post. Shoigu survived relatively intact. He was made head of the Security Council. But those who served under him, they were not so lucky. Within days, Yuri Kuznetsov, head of the Defense Ministry's main personnel directorate, was arrested. Police claimed to have found $1 million in cash during a home search. Then came Vadim Shamarin, the head of communications, sentenced to 7 years for accepting $450,000 in bribes. Then Dmitry Bulgakov, Russia's former deputy defense minister for logistics, arrested July 2024, the man who oversaw Russia's military supply chain when the invasion began. Then Timur Ivanov, another deputy defense minister, 13 years in prison, bribery, and embezzlement. Then Ruslan Salekhanov, charged with embezzlement in March 2026. And then there is Yuri Sadovenko, who did not go to prison. He went to a coffin. Sadovenko, who had served alongside Shoigu since 1994, died on Christmas Day 2025 of sudden heart disease. He was 57. No one seemed to know he was ill. No announcement followed. His death was quiet, swift, and convenient. In Putin's Russia, sudden heart disease has become something of a diplomatic phrase. According to analysts, this purge is not really about corruption. Russia is a country where corruption is the operating system. He makes people rich, so they'll stay loyal. The corruption charges are the same rope he handed them, being used to hang them. The real reason is simpler and more sinister. Putin is terrified. Former CIA officer Daniel Hoffman flagged that several men close to Putin were becoming threats, frustrated by the failure in Ukraine. By early 2026, reports emerged of internet outages in Moscow, coinciding with the arrests of Shoigu allies. A Kremlin-linked Telegram channel claimed the chaos was connected to Shoigu attempting to organize a coup. Whether or not that is true, Putin is behaving like a man who believes it, and in doing so, he is dismantling the very military leadership he needs to win the war. While his soldiers die by the thousands on the front lines, with no one competent left to command them, here's a question that should not need asking. What does a tank unit do without tanks? Russia is finding out. As of April 2026, Russia is parking its main battle tanks up to 20 kilometers behind the front lines because commanders are too afraid to send them in. Ukraine's drone kill zones have made tank assaults virtually suicidal. The terrain is layered with minefields, dragon's teeth, and anti-tank ditches. FPV drone swarms hit their targets more than 80% of the time. So what is Russia doing instead? It is sending the soldiers into combat on foot, or on motorcycles, or quad bikes. Men who spent their entire careers learning to operate 50-ton armored vehicles are now walking into Ukraine's kill zones, carrying rifles, completely exposed. A letter published on April 14th by a Russian military blogger contained a stunning testimony from a soldier. The soldier in Russia's 110th Tank Brigade wrote, "People are ready to go into battle and defend their homeland, but I consider it a crime." He said, "To dispose of the lives of tankers like this is wrong. Tankers are not infantry." He listed 11 tankers he knew who were killed. This is not Ukrainian propaganda. This is a Russian soldier describing what his commanders are doing as tyranny and an illegal practice. But the reason tanks are being kept back isn't only fear. Russia is also running out of them. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense estimates Russia has lost nearly 12,000 tanks since February 2022. The confirmed figure stands at over 4,000. That is more tanks than most nations have ever possessed. The United States, the world's largest military spender, has 4,666 total. Russia's production cannot keep pace. Factories are building 428 tanks per year, but Russia is losing roughly 3,000 per year. The math is brutal and simple. Russia is not replacing what it is losing, so desperate has the situation become that they are pulling Soviet-era T-55s. Tanks built in the 1950s are being sent out with improvised anti-drone cages. These museum pieces are fighting sophisticated drone forces. Ukraine, meanwhile, is adapting. Engineers are converting Leopard 1 tanks into makeshift artillery platforms with 12 to 18 kilometer range. Their tanks don't need to enter kill zones. They fire from a distance and move. One side is innovating. The other is sending men into drone swarms. When Russia launched its invasion in February 2022, Western analysts gave Ukraine's air force maybe a week. Russia entered the war with roughly 1,500 combat aircraft. Ukraine had maybe 125. Aging Soviet-era jets, outgunned and outnumbered more than 12 to 1. The sky was supposed to belong to Russia. Instead, the VKS has been quietly disintegrating, flight by flight, in an extraordinary military collapse. In March 2026, a leaked Russian military flight safety report emerged, a classified internal document covering just 21 days of operations. In those 3 weeks, Russian military aviation logged 24 separate incidents. Not combat losses from missiles, but mechanical failures and engine shutdowns. Incidents happened without a single bullet being fired. 9 incidents involved the same cockpit warnings: metal shavings in oil and low oil pressure. The affected aircraft included Su-34s, Su-30s, Su-35s, and transport planes. Different aircraft, different bases, but the same failure mode. That pattern has one explanation: systemic maintenance collapse across the entire force. One Su-30 SM-2 experienced metal shavings mid-flight and landed on one engine. 5 days later, the same aircraft had the same emergency landing. Russia had patched it and sent it back up without fixing the underlying fault. It gets worse. On January 3rd, 2026, a 500-kilogram guided glide bomb fell off in Su-34 at the moment of takeoff. The bomb landed near the runway. This was not a one-time event. Monitoring outlet Astra tracked at least 10 Russian aerial bombs falling on Russian territory in early 2026. Following hundreds of incidents in prior years, Russia's primary offensive weapon is now spontaneously bombing its own territory. Russia's air defense system then shot down its own helicopter. A returning Mi-8 was struck by a fragment from a Russian missile. Post-flight inspection found a foot-wide hole in the tail boom. Russia used its advanced anti-air systems to shoot down its own helicopter. The root cause is simple. Russia has been flying its aircraft at 2 to 4 times their designed flight hours since 2022. Metal wears, oil degrades, shavings appear. Russia cannot fix this because sanctions have cut off access to precision manufacturing equipment. One facility depends on Japanese machines that cannot be legally replaced. That clock is already running out. Meanwhile, Ukraine received F-16s and Mirage jets. These NATO aircraft introduced systems Russia had no real experience countering. The result? Russian pilots are now deeply reluctant to enter contested airspace at all. Somewhere in southern Ukraine, there is a small village that has become the most terrifying place on earth for Russian soldiers. Its name is Stepnohirsk. A Ukrainian soldier who goes by the call sign 9 described what happens to Russian troops who enter the village. I reckon the life expectancy of one mobilized Russian here is about 12 minutes. No more. And the cost of his life, in shells and FPV drones spent to kill him, is about $5,000 to $6,000. 12 minutes. Russia is not sending amateurs into Stepnohirsk. It has committed 2 paratroop divisions, a motorized rifle division, and a Spetsnaz Special Forces brigade. These are the best soldiers Russia has, and they are lasting 12 minutes. Why does Russia keep trying? Because Stepnohursk sits on high ground south of the Konka River, and Russia needs it as a launching pad to cross that river and push toward Zaporizhzhia city. Zaporizhzhia is home to Ukraine's largest remaining active steelworks. Losing it would be devastating, but holding Stepnohursk is Ukraine's masterclass in modern warfare. Ukrainian forces hold the high ground. Reconnaissance drones watch every movement 24 hours a day. FPV strike drones circle in holding patterns, waiting for a heat signature to appear below. The terrain around the village is partially flooded, forcing Russian troops to trudge through freezing water just to reach the kill zone. Then there is the approach itself. They must cross 4 to 5 kilometers of open field from their staging area in Kamyanska, fully exposed, on foot, in full view of Ukrainian drones. Some Russian soldiers have tried to refuse, but Russia has an answer for that too. 4 captured Russian soldiers told the BBC that they personally witnessed a commander execute soldiers who refused orders on the spot. I see it. Just 2 meters, 3 meters. Click, clack, bang. For those who can afford it, there's a third option: bribery. Some Russian soldiers are paying over $40,000 to buy their way out of suicidal assault missions. For those who can't pay and who can't refuse, the clock starts the moment they cross into Stepnohursk, 12 minutes. Step back and look at everything we have covered today. Russia cannot recruit enough soldiers to replace the ones it's losing. Its tank fleet is depleted beyond recovery at current production rates. Its air force is mechanically collapsing under the weight of overuse. Its Ministry of Defense has been gutted by a paranoid purge. Its elite soldiers die within 12 minutes of entering a single contested village. And despite all of this, Russia is still making territorial gains. Slow, grinding, horrifically expensive gains, but gains. How? Because Russia has one resource that has not run out yet: willingness to absorb casualties that would end any other nation's war. Russia is not winning through strategy, innovation, or military superiority. It is winning, in places, through attrition, through the willingness to sacrifice men the way a chess player sacrifices pawns. But attrition has a breaking point, and Russia appears to be approaching it. For the first time in this war, recruitment is falling while casualties are rising. For the first time, its own soldiers are publicly calling the tactics used against them criminal. For the first time, Russia's top military officials are being arrested or dying of convenient heart attacks, and no one at the top knows if they'll be next. The question that every analyst is now asking is not whether Russia's military is weakening. It clearly is. The question is, how much further does it have to fall before something breaks? At the front or at home? History tells us how stories like this end, not always with a dramatic battlefield defeat, not always with a formal surrender. Sometimes an army simply stops being able to fight, and the men at the top start fighting each other instead. We are seeing signs of both in Russia right now. Putin is arresting his generals. His elite soldiers are dying in 12-minute cycles. His warplanes are bombing Russian territory. His recruitment machine is running dry, and the young people he is now targeting, university students in their 20s, are increasingly aware that signing up means not coming back. The great irony of this war is that Russia still has enormous resources, still has nuclear weapons, still has the ability to inflict devastating suffering on Ukraine. But a military is not just hardware. It is people. It is leadership. It is morale. It is trust between soldiers and commanders, between commanders and political leaders, between the state and its citizens. And on every one of those measures, Russia is fracturing. The world's so-called second strongest army came into this war expecting to shatter Ukraine in 3 days. Instead, it is being shattered. One recruitment shortfall, one tank destroyed, one engine failure, one purged general, one 12-minute death at a time. This is the military show. We cover every development in this war, not just the headlines, but the reality behind them. Subscribe, because this story is far from over, and when it ends, you'll want to have watched it from the beginning.